You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. Your boy Pat Lane, as always, here with my guy Matt St. Jean. And football has officially started, boys and girls. First 2 days of training camp, pretty awesome. I wasn't there, which is weird because I'm usually there. But I took a nice little trip to New York City to see a few Broadway shows with the fam. And I'm back in the
not
saddle.
to see me, to be clear.
That is true. That is a great point. Not to see you. Nope, we were there for a very limited time. My daughter has been freaking out about seeing The Outsiders for months now. Finally went to go see it last night. Absolutely loved it. She made friendship bracelets for the whole cast. So when they came out and did signing and stuff, she was handing them out to them, and she was freaking out. It was fantastic. And then we went to go see Hell's Kitchen at night, which Hell's Kitchen has the Tony winner of the best top, I guess, lead actress or whatever, and then best featured actress, both in their roles. So we got to see them in their roles, which was pretty cool. So,
sounds like
it was a great time. It was a great time.
Yeah, almost as fun as watching Drake May.
Almost as fun, man, bro. I'll tell you. Listen, we can, and I quote tweeted someone. I think it was your tweet. You can say a lot of things about Drake May. You can say you don't like the way. You can say a lot of things. His arm talent is awesome. It is awesome. He's going to be fun to watch. Effortlessly puts that thing 40, 50 yards down the field. And, man, it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I think that was I was listening to, was it Catch 22 is the name of the show? The one with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
Yes,
so
yep.
Barth is on after us if you're listening on the Patriots CLNS YouTube channel, so stay tuned for that. They were talking earlier about Tyquan Thornton, who has been one of the kind of the stars of the second day of camp, which I'm sure we're going to be circling back to wide receiver here.
Yeah.
But one thing that was mentioned is that he's a guy who we know can win on those vertical routes, but hasn't been able to, really show off that in the past. And now, for the first time, they got a quarterback who can actually hit those routes consistently. If he gets open 30, 40, 50 yards down the field, quarterback can see that and actually make a throw. And it's not Tyquan, but you see it with Jalen Reagor yesterday, Wednesday, the opening day of camp. He's streaking down the sideline and against what looked like a cover 2 defense, and finds kind of the hole in the zone, and May just puts it right on him and leads the throw a little bit. The throw could have been a little bit more accurate, but Reagor makes a great play on the ball and it turns into a touchdown. And I mean, we have not had a quarterback with the arm strength to consistently make that throw since Tom Brady.
That's correct. That is correct. And, the way that he's been, and look, we still don't know how he's going to be at reading a defense. We don't know how he's going to be at getting everyone lined up correctly. He, was a little bit up and down today, more so than yesterday. I think the entire offense is a little bit more up and down today than it was yesterday. But, just early observation, when you look at it just looks effortless for him. And that's what you want to see from your quarterback, is that, sure, he's got to have the mentality, he's got to have the mental, he's got to have everything else. But to be able to play quarterback and make it look that easy is something that can get you excited. And then that's honestly a way that I feel like guys that aren't 100% ready can get on the field a little early, because they don't have to worry about some other things. They can focus on the things that they have to work on. And so we'll see. But it's an encouraging first few days of camp.
And I think you also look at some of the numbers, just the raw stats of how many passes they're completing and everything. Brissett and May both look fine. There's no they don't look out of place. They look like they are quarterbacks that belong on an NFL football field against a defense that's very talented and playing with an offensive line that has struggled thus far in camp. Which, drink if you've heard that one before. But yeah, it's encouraging to see those guys actually be able to operate in the face of pressure and make things happen. Today on day 2, from all accounts, they're not pushing the ball downfield. It's all underneath today, but they're still hitting guys. They're still making the throws. A couple of bad throws, a couple of good plays on the ball by the defense, as you would expect. But for the most part, pretty consistent, which is what you were looking for from these guys and should be a step up from what we were getting last year. We're 2 days into camp, and I think it's only one interception between the top two quarterbacks, and it was a deflected one. I could be wrong. I might have missed one in there. But.
No picks today. John Jones. I don't know if John Jones made the interception yesterday or forced the interception yesterday. But I know John Jones made a nice play.
Duggar caught it, I believe.
Okay, so there you go. So, and no interceptions today. So only one pick. And look, it's early. There's no hitting. There's not a lot of physicality going on, of course, right? The long pass to Rager that you mentioned, now that may have been cover 2. But, still, he's wide open there, right? I mean, Azizi Hearn, I guess, a few people said Azizi Hearn was in coverage. I'm like, man, he was 20 yards behind him. He's not in coverage, so I can't imagine that was cover 1. It had to have been cover 2. You would hope at least. Otherwise,
some kind of a zone or a miscommunication or whatever, because there was no defender in the area except the safety trying to come over late.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure exactly what it was looking like, and that's the other thing for me is the wide receivers. And Dark Blue Gold's asking us if we've been to Foxboro. Again, neither of us have been to Foxboro. You're in New York. I was in New York the last 2 days. I will be at Foxboro tomorrow. And I know Dark Blue Gold and Oliver are in the chat right now from across the pond. They're going to Wembley. I'm not going to Wembley, but both my parents are going to Wembley. So they're excited to be over there. But all accounts is that the wide receivers are making a statement, right? Jalen Rager had a good day yesterday. Tyquan Thornton had a good day today. Jalen Polk has been just consistent. He's just consistent. I wouldn't be surprised, and we'll see what happens with Kendrick Bourne when Kendrick Bourne comes back, assuming he comes back healthy. But it's starting to feel like to me that if Jalen Polk continues to do what he's doing, he's going to be their wide receiver 1 by the end of the year. It just from everything I've heard, from everything that he just looks so smooth running it. He's quick in and out of his breaks. The quickness is real, and the hands are great. Hands are great. I think it was Taylor that said, every single pass, he looks it in and tucks it, every single one. And that's just, it's just something that you work on and something that matters, I think. And so I'm getting really excited about seeing those guys.
Yeah, one thing I thought was interesting, I've been trying to piece together a depth chart based on what we know so far. And from what I can tell, with Kendrick Bourne and Pop Douglas not practicing at the moment, which Pop Douglas apparently is dealing with some kind of a hand or finger issue. So he's doing drills, but not like 7-on-7 or 11-on-11 work. Is that they have Jalen Polk in the slot. Like, as far as I can tell, your starting receivers in 11 personnel with the number 1 offense has Thornton outside, Osborne outside, and Jalen Polk in the slot, which is a really interesting alignment. That is not necessarily how I would place those guys, but I'm also not the one being paid to coach this team. And,
right.
I think it's interesting decision making by Alex Van Pelt, but I like Jalen Polk on the outside, but he had a lot of comparisons to Jacoby Myers, Tyler Boyd, guys who played in the slot. And if they think he can win there, especially the fact that he can be so physical as a blocker, he might be able to be a power slot for you with some juice in that position. And he can, block in the running game for you and do a lot for you there. Curious to see where else he ends up on this offense. I'm assuming all these receivers are going to get moved around. I think the only receiver where I feel like he's actually locked into a spot on the field is Pop Douglas. Is almost definitely playing in the slot when he's out there. I think everybody else, you can put them inside or outside and feel all right about it.
Right, and that's the interesting thing with Polk is that if they do want to play Polk in the slot, that means that Demario Douglas isn't playing in the slot, right? Or Polk's not on the field, right? When Douglas is on the field, right? And so for me, I feel like, sure, maybe they like him in the slot a little bit, but Douglas isn't playing outside. And if Polk is the slot receiver, I just don't see him beating out Douglas for that spot, right? I just think that Pop has so much explosion and has that kind of big play ability that really no one else on the team has. outside of guys like Rager and Thornton, but who knows if they can actually play receiver, right? And so, that's what makes it interesting. But again, they know what they're doing. We got to trust those guys and make sure they understand what is going on. Miss Snoopy, I don't even know. Mr. Snoop, I don't know. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah, there you go. Hey, what's going on with Caden Wallace? Does he look good? Does he look terrible? Misspelling Caden Wallace's name, we'll forgive it because it's a weird spelling.
And a great cat picture for the profile picture.
It is a great cat picture. That's a good point. Look, here's the deal, right? As far as I'm concerned, I think right now they're shuffling people in and out. I know the first unit. So the first unit, day one, right, across the board, right, was Chooks or Chooks, I think, right? Is it he goes by Chooks?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
I've just been saying Okorafor because I
say
don't know.
Okorafor, but I'm pretty sure I've heard multiple people say Chooks, so we'll go with Okorafor but you know what I'm talking about. Played left tackle, right? City So at left guard, David Andrews, of course, at center, Mike Omeno at right guard, and then at right tackle on day one at least was Calvin Anderson. Now on day two, those four positions were the same, and now Vidarian Lowe was at right tackle. And so I don't know whether Caden Wallace has looked bad out there. It's really impossible to tell what the offensive line looks like right now because they're not hitting anyone. They're not blocking anyone really. And I think that they're going to give, as far as I know, they're going to give the veterans a look first, right? Because their kind of thought process is these guys have earned it. We're going to let them kind of get a look first, and then we'll see what happens. And
they've had Caden Wallace as the backup right tackle both of these days, working with the twos, and then whoever, whether it's Vidarian Lowe or Calvin Anderson, whoever isn't the starting right tackle has been the backup left tackle as far as I can tell.
Yes,
so I almost feel like it's a pretty – it seems like it's a three-person competition then for the starting right tackle job, although I will say the reports on Vidarian Lowe today were not good. Obviously, no pads, so it's hard to read too much into the offensive line stuff, but he seemed to be a problem for them at right tackle today, and I wonder if we don't see him get this opportunity again because of that. Calvin Anderson is a guy who has played well. I wouldn't be surprised. I think you get Connor McDermott level play out of him when he's healthy out there. He apparently loves an outside zone running scheme too, which I think is a plus if he can play in that. It seems like Okorafor is locked in as your starting left tackle. That trio on the left side of the line seems locked in week one, as long as they're all healthy.
Does.
How that's going to look. So they should get to practice together, work together from now until September 8th when you're playing in Cincinnati, which is good. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say about Wallace at this point. And he's the type of player where you need to see the pads come on to really see what he can do too, I think. Because he's physical.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, that's what it comes down to for me, because you mentioned that Okorafor is kind of slotted in as that number one left tackle. And I think that makes a lot of sense that they're putting him there. And I like the fact that they're doing that. Now, I have my concerns about whether or not he'll be able to do it. But once the pads go on, I should say, then we'll really know, right? We'll get an idea of, is this actually something that's going to work, right? Or, he's not the guy at left tackle. And then now you got to scramble to try to figure something else out, right? Whether it's, Calvin Anderson over at left and Caden Wallace at right tackle, and a few people have said, Miss Snoopy over there said, that Vidarian Lowe stinks. Vidarian Lowe does stink. I think we saw that last year. I think he's an okay backup or third string tackle. If you need some depth, I think he can play a little bit. If he's going to be your starting right tackle, I think we're in trouble. And so, I'm hoping that Okorafor works out at left tackle, and then either you have Anderson or Wallace at right tackle, and then the third guy, again, whether it's Anderson or Wallace, is your swing tackle. Someone gets hurt, he goes in there, right? And so we'll kind of see what happens. That's the biggest question. I just think we've talked about this a few times, and I was interacting with someone on Twitter about this, and I don't know what their plan was at tackle. I don't know if their plan was to keep Mike Onwenu initially was to keep Mike Onwenu at right tackle. But it seems like he's a better guard, right? Brandon Thorne talked about it in, with his athletic podcast, talking about, the worst offensive line in football. And he said the Patriots were either the worst or the second worst offensive line in football. And he just said, look, Mike Onwenu struggles in space as a right tackle. He's a guard. He's a fantastic guard. And so, like, for me personally, I would like to have him at guard because he can be a Pro Bowl or maybe not quite all pro level, but close to an all pro level guard. He's a good tackle. But if I can get a guy that's that good at guard, I want that. I think that that's more important than having a good tackle is having a fantastic guard, right? And so I'd rather have that and try to fill in with a good tackle at right tackle.
There was a quote from Okorafor, this is from today. He was asked about shuffling the line a little, and that's what he had to say. He goes, quote, "Our coaches have said every day will be a different line. We don't really know who's going to be the guy yet. Obviously, with David Andrews and Mike Onwenu, we know about them. But I think apart from that, everything is open." So that makes me wonder here if we're going to see a couple other line combinations before pads come on. They practice on Friday, so tomorrow. Then they're off Saturday, back out there Sunday, and then Monday is your first padded practice. So if you want to play around with 2 more line combinations before pads come on, you have the opportunity to do so. I think that gives you the opportunity to see Caden Wallace start at right tackle. If you'd like to see that, gives you Mike Onwenu at right tackle. If you'd like to see that, it gives you Tyrone Wheatley at right tackle. If that is something you would like to see, or if they just want to go right back to Calvin Anderson, this is my guess is that they feel like the left side is settled, and they're gonna have basically from the center over work together all camp. The right side, they're going to mix it up a little bit early on, try to figure out what their best pairing is. And then hopefully, after preseason week 1, when you've seen guys in game, you feel good about what your duo is and you can stick with that. Now, obviously, Patriots aren't the Detroit Lions. They don't have an elite offensive line. They're not going to come in here and know who their starting offensive line is from the first day of training camp because the guys aren't that good. So you are going to be mixing and matching until you find something that works. That said, one thing I think is really interesting here is that they don't seem to have a reserved spot for Cole Strange. I think there would be, I don't think people would question it if they came out with a Okorafor left tackle and Nick Leverett at left guard, and then Andrews Onwenu on the right side. And they basically just kind of said, this is our line, and when Cole Strange is back, we're going to pop him in at left guard.
Right.
They're not doing that, which tells me one of, or possibly both, of 2 things are true. One, they did not think that Cole Strange's play has been good enough to guarantee him that kind of a spot on the team in the starting lineup. 2, his injury is so severe, they do not know when or if he will be back this season. So he got hurt that was November, right? Late November?
It was a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, or early December, that Chiefs game. Yeah. It's an injury that can have a 12-month recovery, and even then, you oftentimes aren't back to football shape until, the next season.
Right.
I think we should be preparing ourselves for a situation here where Cole Strange misses the whole year. I think that's very possible. He's already on the PUP list. We haven't heard anything about him. They don't have a spot penciled in for him to play. They're preparing for him to not be out there. Now you've got City at his natural left guard spot, where you are assuming he's going to look a little bit better and develop. If they're telling you Cole Strange isn't going to be healthy until week 12, that might not be it for him this year.
Right, I would agree. Also, just a quick programming note, because someone asked about Twitch. We are back live on Twitch. Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it now only allows you to stream on there if you are verified. We are not. We will not be. And so we're back to Switch. We're back to Twitch. I'm sorry.
You could probably watch it on. Is Twitch on a Switch? Can you watch us on the
theoretically,
Switch?
You could watch Twitch on a Switch, I would think. Dr. Seuss.
We are in Switch.
But anyways, and I think that's look. And, Strange, I think it makes sense to call Strange a bust. The hard thing is that he's just not healthy, right? And look, it is what it is. But when you drafted the guy, you didn't know. He had 0 health concerns when you drafted him. 0. Yeah. He's been unable to stay healthy. Now, you could make the argument, well, he's going from a level of competition that, was significant. But that doesn't mean he's going to automatically get injured a lot. And so, it was something you couldn't predict. Now, I will say, was it a reach? Absolutely. Is it a bust? Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can call it a bust because when you reach like that, you better hit a home run, and you didn't. And the reasons could be that he was hurt. It doesn't matter why. It didn't work out, right? And so when you reach for a guy like that, and by the way, you had number 22. You needed a corner, right? And the Chiefs take a future all-pro corner at 22. Not great, right? It's not a great look that you move back to 29 and then take a huge risk on a guy that hasn't worked out, right? Mm-hmm. And so it just is what it is. And I think that's, I think we can move past it now. We're past the Belichick era. I think it was clearly a Belichick pick. It was kind of obvious from the beginning it was a Belichick pick. And so, it is what it is. And I think that, it's a tough situation, of course, but you move on. And if Sidy Sow is working out at left guard and Mike Onwenu is going to be your right guard of the long-term future, and if Caden Wallace can step in and play right tackle, now you look at it and say, okay, we have a question mark at center when David Andrews retires, and we have a question mark at left tackle, right? Assuming a core four isn't like the long-term guy. If you're not that good this year, you're probably drafting left tackle in the first round next year. So it could be a situation where your offensive line is in pretty good shape next year. And again, we don't know that, right? And that's one of the things, and I'm working on an article for Pat's Pulpit, but one of the things that I'm going to talk about in the article is that the Patriots have a ton of question marks. And so that typically means they're not going to be very good. And it probably means they're not going to be very good. But they're question marks. We don't know the answers yet, right? Now we have to assume that the answers are not going to be great, right? That a core four isn't going to be a really good left tackle, that their right tackle, whoever it is this year, isn't going to be a fantastic player. We have to assume that that's not going to be the case. We have to assume that their wide receivers aren't going to be really good. But they might be. We don't know. We don't know what Jalen Pope's going to be. We don't know if Demario Douglas is going to take a step up this year. We don't know what Javon Walker is going to be. And so Javon Baker is going to be. So we don't know those things, right? And so that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, of course, there's very, very pessimistic right now around New England. However, if a few of those things hit, the Patriots could be a lot better than we think. And we'll see what happens. But I think ultimately, I think the Patriots might be a little bit better than people expect if a few of those things can break positive instead of negative for them.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. They could score, actually pulling up some of the numbers here, they could score 50 more points next season than they did this past season.
All right.
Based on last season's numbers, that would move them up from 31st, which is actually tied for 31st with Carolina. So tied for last would move them up to 29th. So they have room to improve, raw totals offensively. And it still might not change the rank a whole ton, but that's okay. If they go from tied for last in points scored to 26th in points scored, again, take a look at where 26th was. 26th was 321 points. It's 85 more points than the Patriots scored last year.
Right.
That would be pretty significant. Doing some quick math, that's got to be like 5 points a game, I'm guessing, difference. 85 over 17 games. So
look at you doing good math over there.
I'm trying. So there's room for improvement here for sure. And based on these numbers, we should all feel bad about how it was last year. But you just hope that if everybody is healthy and can practice throughout most of camp, that alone gives you like an extra 20 points on the season because
well,
people
and
actually know what's going on.
And here's ultimately, let's just be honest about last year. We did not get competent quarterback play basically all of last year. Yes, the offensive line was a disaster. Yes, the receiving core stunk. Of course, all that stuff is true. We didn't get competent quarterback play all year long. Mac Jones stunk all year. Bailey Zappi went in. He stunk all year. Those guys stink. They're not good players. Objectively, they're not good players. And so the idea is that if you can get at least just passable quarterback play, replacement level quarterback play from Jacoby Brissett or Drake May in his rookie year. You're going to be maybe not significantly better, but you're going to be a good amount better. And may I add, Pop Douglas is another year in the league. You drafted two wide receivers, and if one of them makes some sort of impact, that's going to help, right?
Throw Tyquan Thornton in there if he could stay healthy past week 1 of the preseason.
Yes. And I also feel like I feel better about their offensive coaching situation than I did last year as well. And so, we don't know if these things are going to pan out, but I just for me personally, when I look at it, I just think there's room for improvement from the Patriots here. And it's really not that far-fetched to think that they can be significantly better on offense. And again, like you said, significantly better on offense doesn't mean they're going to be a top 10 offense. Significantly better on offense means they could be a mid-20s offense, and they're significantly better than they were last year, right? And so they still may not be good, but the offense at least will be watchable, right? They won't get flexed out of a Sunday night football game against Patrick Mahomes with Taylor Swift in the building to a 1 o'clock game on Sunday because they're so unwatchable. And I think that's what we're looking for, right? Just a little bit of an improvement.
This team was so unwatchable last year. The Patriots, the New England Patriots, with a massive dedicated fan base that tunes into every game, got relegated to almost entirely 1 o'clock games for the whole season. CBS doesn't even want us. We're on Fox almost as much as we're on CBS this season because we're at the bottom of the ticket and they're just putting us wherever. We got one primetime game, and it's a Thursday night game early in the season against a division rival. The only other time you get a standalone game is 9:30 in the morning in London, and that's because your owner has, the international ties and loves doing that stuff.
Right. Listen, they're playing in Chicago. Chicago's an hour behind. They're playing in Chicago with the number 1 pick potentially playing as the number 3 pick. It's still a 1 o'clock game. So, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about that bad, So,
yeah. And I will say Evan Lazar was talking about this a little bit about, frustrating a little bit in this camp that we're already hearing about the offensive line being an issue because this has been a running theme now that they can't practice because of the offensive line. It did seem better. This isn't like a couple years ago where everything is constantly blown up. It's more so that when things get blown up, it's bad.
Yeah.
In between plays, there's some room. But and one of the things that was talked about is you got a play action that they call the naked bootleg. So you run play action and you're intentionally leaving one defender unblocked because what you're counting on is that the play action is what's going to occupy him.
Right.
The quarterback can run right around him and throw the ball. In this case, pads aren't on. They're not really running the ball. And they try one of those, and Matthew Judon at no point is ever buying that it's a run.
Right.
And he's, I don't know if it was a sack or an incompletion throwaway, whatever, but it blowing up the play. And it's all right, is this not working because the scheme doesn't work? Is it not working because the offensive line isn't good? Is it not working because of execution? Or is it not working because it's the second day of practice, no pads are on, no defense is ever going to buy that that's a run?
Right.
So when you're playing against a smart veteran player. So that's something we'll have to watch because these are some of the issues that they had 2 years ago when they tried an outside zone scheme, but that was also met with a ton of issues in the running game. We remember that Raiders preseason game where they tried to run the ball and nothing would work.
Yep.
No, nothing would work. And we haven't gotten that yet. So that'll be, if we're coming up with things to watch, notes from Monday, it's going to be how does the running game look once they get those pads on?
That's the biggest question.
Is it that kind of a disaster? Or is there a group of 5 guys they could put out there that can move the ball kind of?
Well, again, honestly, to be quite frank with you, one of the reasons why I think Mike Onwenu was a good fit inside is because the 2 biggest questions you have are then on the outside. If you can run the ball and just get decent run blocking from your 2 tackles, Sidy Sow was a really good run blocker last year as a rookie. You got to assume he's going to get better. Mike Onwenu was a fantastic run blocker, always has been, and David Andrews is a good run blocker. So at least you have those 3 guys in the middle that you can rely on to be blockers for your running game. Mm-hmm. And then if you can get something from your tackles, Now you're looking at saying we can at least get some positive yardage up the middle. If we run that inside zone play, we can at least get some positive yardage up the middle. And then, see what happens in the outside zone. But at the very least, you can make them try to commit more guys to the middle of the field, which then opens up stuff on the outside of the field in the passing game and, and so on and so forth. And so, we'll see. But I just think that that's one of the reasons why it's like if those three in the middle are solid, then the outside you can manage a little bit more, right? And so we'll see.
And I want to, especially, if you're good on the inside, that allows you to do like double teams and stuff where you can like take advantage of that and help out your guys on the outside. Right. And like,
exactly.
If you want to run like duo running a scheme, that's going to be a pair of double teams as your main blocks. And that means one of your double teams is going to be a center and a guard that you feel good about. And the other one's going to be a guard with a tackle who you're hoping once they're together, they can execute that block. And that's all right. You should be able to do some of that stuff. And Calvin Anderson knows the outside zone scheme. I wouldn't be shocked if the offensive line we saw day one of training camp is your starting offensive line. And I don't hate that. I'm a Calvin Anderson believer, but like.
Well, and that's to me, it's just going to be, it's going to be a question for me about what does Caden Wallace look like? And can Caden Wallace push for that job? I don't think Vidarian Lowe's pushing for that job. Can Caden Wallace push for that job? Can we see some consistency out of Calvin Anderson? I think it was unfair to ask of him last year. We didn't know the malaria situation, of course, until after the season was over. But I think, everyone kind of understand where he was at last year. And so when he's now healthy, what does it look like out there? Right. And is Caden Wallace good enough to push him, for playing time? And we'll see. And honestly, like you said, if that ends up the 5 and we have Caden Wallace as a swing tackle, I don't hate that. I really don't. And so
that means you can develop him a little. And Calvin Anderson, obviously PFF grades, you don't take with a grain of salt, but it's a little bit like they have some merit. Calvin Anderson graded out as like a tackle in the 30s 2 years ago. I'm sorry, not 2 years, 3 years ago, 2021, and then 2022 when he played a little bit more. That dropped a bit, but it was still a tackle in like the 50s or 60s overall, which is like a borderline starting offensive tackle, which obviously, when your goal is to win championships, that's a spot you're looking to upgrade.
Obviously.
They're just trying to improve on last year now. And if you got a guy who can play either side of the line, right or left tackle, at somewhere around the 60th best tackle in the NFL, that's a step up from what they were getting at points last year.
100%.
If you can do that consistently, stay on the field.
100%.
And then your worst case scenario is that your best case is that he's your backup swing tackle. Caden Wallace takes over your starting job. Okorafor is decent, and okay, we've got an offensive line that is the 22nd best in the NFL, and we feel good about the interior, and now we're going to go at the draft and really attack tackle.
Right. Yeah, unless, again, you think Caden Wallace can be your future left tackle, and then you're grooming him to be that guy, right?
It does not sound like he's getting any kind of reps at left tackle in practice from what I've heard, which is kind of funny with all the left tackle talk that we heard after he was drafted. And here's the thing. I don't think they're entirely blowing smoke. I think they think he can play there, but it's probably one of those where, the right tackle is the more obvious need right now with Strange out and So moved over and Onwenu moved over. So you just start him at one spot, and I would expect he'll get some left tackle reps.
Well, and that becomes the question then becomes, if Anderson's your starting right tackle, do you then work on Caden Wallace exclusively on the left side to try to have him be that guy next year, right? But again, if you're drafting in the top 5 next year, probably going to draft a left tackle, right? You would think, at least, unless you think Caden Wallace can be, a future franchise left tackle, which I just don't see happening,
Yeah, and it's one of those too where, like, I think you have to. If there's a left tackle you like, I think you're drafting one next year if they're on the board, because even if you really like what you got from Okorafor, like, he's a guy that can play right tackle for you. So you could just shift him over if he plays that well. If Caden Wallace plays that well, he can be your right tackle. You can shore up one tackle spot if guys play well this year. And obviously the dream scenario is that Okorafor secretly was better at left tackle all along and can be a franchise guy when you move him over. And Caden Wallace is as good as people were hoping he could be. It could be your starting right tackle and your offensive line is fixed. That's probably not what's happening here.
Right.
If that happens, we're all going to be jumping for joy. And this is a team. I mean, if the offensive line actually gets put together into a good offensive line this year, then I think the ceiling on this team can get incredibly high, and the floor on this team gets incredibly high. Because then you got a good running back. You can do your play action stuff. You're going to be able to move the ball in offense. You're going to be able to protect your quarterback. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be issues. I think quarterback's going to get hit a lot this year when it's, obvious passing situations. It's the world they're going to be living in. You just hope that it is passable enough that you can evaluate everything else around it, and you get enough production that you feel like there's only one offensive line spot you're trying to upgrade next year.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. We got some good questions in the chat we want to get to, and then probably talk just maybe Matthew Judon for just a second, and then we'll be back.
Nothing beats the sights and sounds at Fenway Park when the Sox take on the Yankees. From the smell of good Fenway Frank to the cheers of the crowd, there's no better way to spend a summer evening. And with Game Time, you can make sure you're there. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. The Red Sox return to Fenway from the All-Star break in a few weeks to host the Yankees and Mariners, and using the Game Time app, you can quickly find the best value tickets for any game by looking for the blue check mark on the map. And with all-in pricing, the price you see is the price you pay, no hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
All right. So just a few more things that I wanted to just quickly check in on. The Matthew Judon situation is interesting. The Devon Godshaw situation is interesting. Certainly seems like Godshaw is a little bit more upset about his contract situation than Matthew Judon, at least as far as the hold-in situation. It seems that Godshaw's not really going to practice until he gets a new contract, if he gets a new contract. Matthew Judon is a guy that, look, I've been saying this since like October. Like, we knew this was coming. They gave him money from this year, last year. We knew it was coming. He wasn't going to pay for this. He wasn't going to play for this. And so I think the Patriots still have real interest in bringing him back. I don't know if they have an interest in Devon Godshaw. Juwan Bentley said they're both very, very important to what they want to do defensively. I believe that that's true, but he also has to say, what the hell was he going to say? Like, we don't really need Devon Godshaw. We'll be fine. Like, well, he can't really say that up there. So we'll see. But I think, again, I don't want to necessarily go through the whole thing, but it's something that bears watching for the next few weeks. What are they going to do with these two guys? And I think that Judon probably is more likely to get a contract, but then again, maybe not. Maybe it really is Godshaw that gets a new contract, and Judon ends up getting shipped out of town.
The Godshaw thing to me is mystifying. Godshaw currently has the 13th highest cap hit of any defensive tackle in the NFL this season. There's a defensive tackle, too, for this team. And he's good. It's not like a great player. He's just a good player. Like, he's a steady starter. I understand wanting more of that guaranteed, and I bet they're willing to give him some of that. But there's nothing in his play or his ranking in the NFL that tells me he should be getting some kind of significant raise. And if he wants an extension, like, sure, I get that, but I don't know. It feels weird to be holding out for an extension when you're in the position he is, when he'll be hitting the free agent market where defensive tackles have been very valuable, like the past couple cycles. Like, it's a weird situation. He didn't come out until partway through practice today. It seemed like he practiced yesterday, so like I don't know what's going on there. Judon, I think, is handling this expertly, being very honest, open. Making sure the fans know how much that he loves them, talking with the owner at practice. He's still practicing. He says, basically, does the opposite of threatening holdout. He says, no matter what, I'm going to be here. I signed the contract. but I love this place and I love the fans and I want to stay here. I don't want to move. So please give me more money. I think
Right.
that's a really good way to play it. I think he's going to end up getting something based on that. The fact that he was talking with Robert Kraft today, which tells me that they are going to work something out. I think that
so
gets
too.
figured out. I think Godshaw gets figured out too, because Godshaw doesn't have a ton of leverage and they can probably just guarantee a little bit more money and feel good. Patriots have less leverage there because they cut Lawrence Guy.
Correct.
I will say, before the offseason, one of the things that I was kind of softly pushing for was, with how good the defensive tackle market was, move on from Guy and Godshaw, replace them with one other elite defensive tackle, go get a Christian Wilkins or Matabike or whoever you like. And, Matabike this year has a smaller cap hit than Devon Godshaw does before anything else, which part of that's because he's got a longer deal and everything. The cap hit will get bigger.
Of course, right. Yeah, but it just
it
seems strange.
Yeah, I would have preferred, you cash in 2 for 1 there, and when Barmore is going to be really good, you replace the 2 guys next to him with another guy who's also really good, and then get a couple of cheap depth pieces to round it out. That's personally what I would have done. I don't know how they're going to handle this, but I think they need Godshaw because the depth there is
Well, then that's the thing, right? Is that you obviously have Christian Barmore, but you don't have a ton of proven defensive line depth in the middle. And so, that's you're just kind of stuck there, unfortunately. And so
they got 6 guys defensive tackle who I think can play, but the problem is 4 of them are role players.
Right.
I like Aquale, I like Farms, I like Watts, I like Sam Roberts. All given good snaps in the NFL, but none of those guys is replacing Godshaw for you as a starter. So
right. I think I would be more likely or more willing, I guess, to move on from Matthew Judon, only because I think you'll get more for him. You're not getting it if Devon Godshaw, if you're moving on from Devon Godshaw, you're just cutting him or you're trading him for nothing. You might be able to get something for Judon. We'll see. I mean, I don't know, but we'll see. And in an ideal world, I'd keep them both. But I don't know if that's going to be the case.
I think they will end up keeping both because, again, Godshaw doesn't have leverage and Judon has so much leverage that I feel like you kind of have to give in a little. But, yeah, I think Judon is – you get a bigger return for Judon, and I think you have more depth at the position. You're not going to feel great if it's Penny Jennings and Joshua Uche out there as your starters again for a whole season, but they did it last year and had a good defense. So it isn't ideal, but especially when you have Keon White also in that rotation now in some capacity. You have 3 guys you feel like you can put out there and can play and can give you, I think, starter minutes, starter snaps. I don't know if you have that with your backup defensive tackles. So.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So we'll see. All right, a few questions from the chat. First of all, someone was talking about, was it Old Man Mob, and you started Old Man Mob and Ash, and we're talking about we were the goats of Pat's Media, which we appreciate. Then he said, "Who do you think was Brady, and who do you think was Belichick?" He called you Brady because he carried the show when I wasn't available. That's messed up, dude. I've carried the show when that wasn't available as well. But I'll let you guys duke that one out. I'm not going there. I'll let. I
will bask in the glow of any Tom Brady comparison and not question it.
And to be completely honest with you, I mean, I'll take the Bill Belichick comparison too. I'm totally fine.
Look,
with
I'm the younger one. You're the older one too. So
that's a good point. On that. That's also a good point. That's a great point.
Does this mean I'm going to go on a Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast at some point?
Potentially. I also will say, just so that putting that out there, as a few people have mentioned, I did pass the Patriots conditioning test. So I'm ready to go. If the Patriots are looking for a 40-year-old, not super athletic, short, not very strong guy, I'm great in the locker room. But I don't bring much else to the table, if we're being honest. But hey, I am available. Did pass the test. The video is on YouTube. You can go check it out on our YouTube feed. And we had some fun with it. I had my buddy Derek, who I work with at school, filmed it for me down at the high school, and so it was cool. We had some fun with it. So if you get a chance, check that video out. We had some fun with it. So yeah. So But I think that's it, my guy. Do we have anything else? Is there anything else you want to talk about before we go?
I had a quote I wanted to bring up that I liked. One that
Let's
I
hear
had
it.
just written down. It's a long one. This is from Christian Gonzalez talking about Jalen Polk because they were rivals that went up against one another in college.
Mm-hmm.
Gonzalez said, he's coming in and doing what he's got to do, keeping his head down, but he's an energy guy. He brings energy. His energy is infectious. So being around him, not just playing against him, it's fun to be around and see how cool of a guy and how happy he is. He's hungry and ready to go. So I'm excited to keep competing with him on the field. And I'm really excited to watch him go do what he does on Sundays. Well, optimism inside the building on Polk there.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like
so
that.
We'll say, talk about optimism inside the building. It seems like they all love Christian Gonzalez. He seems to be in a great spot as the starting corner. I think is it Rappaport or Lockin' Four? One of those two was tweeting something the other day and just like casually mentioned, oh yeah, a lot of love inside the building for Gonzalez, like a lot of optimism there. So I've made the comparison before. It's not 1-to-1 because I think the caliber of the players I'm about to compare to is a pair of Hall of Fame guys, but look for a defense based around a versatile cornerback one and an elite defensive tackle, but that Rams team that won the Super Bowl with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey.
Right.
Obviously, that's a lofty comparison.
Clearly.
But these guys have the talent to be that caliber or close to that caliber. I don't know if they're going to be Hall of Fame level guys, but Barmore was a Pro Bowl caliber guy last year. Didn't get the votes. I think he will next year. Christian Gonzalez could be a lockdown corner one. And if you get those two, it makes scheming the rest of your defense easy. It means you're
absolutely
guaranteed one-on-ones on the defensive line for everybody else. It means you're going to be better at stopping the run. It means you can do one-on-one matchups with number one receivers on the other team and get double teams elsewhere, or give you a variety of defensive schemes so that they don't know what's coming. It's a lot easier to draft and develop talent when everybody's a role player at defense.
Right.
The difference with the Ramsey Donald comparison, both of those guys were kind of at the end of their prime to a degree when they were playing together. It's two guys who were coming into their primes together. So you could have, the Christian defense, these guys together on this team for the next 5, 6, 7 seasons.
That'd be pretty nice.
Yeah, like that.
And look, I mean, let's be honest, right? Those are very lofty comparisons, as you said, but I don't necessarily hate it. I don't hate it. And so, that's going to be, it's going to bear some watching. If Christian Gonzalez can stay healthy, he's going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem in the NFL.
Yeah.
And Barmore, we've already seen what he can do. And so, if Keon White takes a step forward this year and Juwan Bentley continues his strong play, Jelani Tavai, man, did you see Jelani Tavai's visor with the Hawaii?
My first question is, how does he see through that thing?
Woo! I don't care, man. Holy crap, dude. How can he not make the Pro Bowl in that thing? Like that's unbelievable.
Got it. Oh, and you got Marcus Jones out there making plays. He had a PBU on Jalen Polk, a guy who's bigger than him, stronger than him, with elite hands. So either Jalen Polk is a little bit worse than we were hoping, or Marcus Jones is a dog with this stuff.
This is Marcus. This is what Marcus has done, man.
He's always been, for his size, he's always been super competitive.
He was doing that he did that against T. Higgins when they played Cincinnati his rookie year. Now, T. Higgins beat him over the top because he just out-muscled him. But they had multiple plays where he stepped in there and made some really nice plays. I think it was in Arizona where he stuck the was it McBride? I don't think it was McBride. It was a tight end that was coming across the middle or towards the sideline.
Yeah.
He absolutely lit him up. He's not afraid to play physical. And that's part of the reason why he got hurt last year. But I think that, old man mom points it out, like he did that in college consistently. Like he was a dog in college. I liked it a lot.
It was kind of funny in this college tape. One of the games was simultaneously one of the most and least impressive games I saw from him, because it was when it might have been when they went up against like Cincinnati or something. He had to play Alec Pierce or something along those lines. It was a big body receiver, and it was like Marcus Jones got beat a lot over the top with the size there, but they were all incredibly competitive plays for basically any other receiver has it broken up. And it was just a guy who was so much bigger that it was overwhelming.
Polk he had a really nice play. No, he had a really nice play in the end zone against Pierce in that game, because I remember that was in my breakdown. But
some of the best plays I've seen that resulted in touchdowns for the offense. Still,
he just he's just a guy that I love his hustle. He had a Ben Watson play in college. Like, I just, where he chases a guy down from the other end of the field. And, he's a guy I obviously love. I'm super excited about him, as you can see. I'm a big Marcus Jones guy. And so it just, that's the hard thing for me is like, where is he going to play? I think he's going to be in the slot this year. I think he's their number one slot corner. And I think it's John Jones, Chris Gonzalez on the outside. And in my opinion, if you have John Jones and Christian Gonzalez with Marcus Jones in the middle, and back there you have Kyle Duggar and Phillips. I'm sorry, not Phillips, Peppers. Holy crap, that's a really good defense. That's a hard hitting defense. That's a playmaking defense. I think that to me that's one of those things that's interesting. And Dark Blue Gold, that's a good question here. By the way, happy birthday, Dark Blue Gold. I know it's technically tomorrow here, but it's today here, but tomorrow there. So happy birthday. Something that bears watching, I think, is the return game. Obviously, Jalen Reagor is there to return, but Marcus Jones is a shifty, really good returner. He's a great punt returner. And the question is that the type of guy that you want returning kicks? Like, I don't know if that's the type of guy you want returning kicks, but with the new rules, there's a chance that he's the kickoff guy and the punt guy. Right now, I don't know if that's the case or not, but it might be. And I think that, that could be really interesting. That could throw a wrinkle in some things where you look at it and say, can this guy, be a good player for them simply because of, of the return stuff. And I think he's going to play really well on defense too, but I'm curious to see whether it's Reagor or Marcus Jones back there, or, maybe there's a different type of guy back there, so we'll see.
Yeah. And I don't think he's done like any special team stuff other than like kicking and like a little bit of punt formation stuff. So we don't have any clue where they're at with the kick return. But yeah, I think this is where, especially when you get to the roster crunch stuff, it's okay. How good do they feel about Marcus Jones with that? If they feel really good about it, then all of a sudden that impacts your wide receiver 6 conversation between Jalen Reagor and Tyquan Thornton.
Absolutely.
So we'll say it does. It sounds like Thornton's ahead of Reagor right now, playing with the ones. So that should, help inform that decision making. Going back to the defense, though, just from the putting together the reports, it sounds like their starters are Gonzalez, Marcus Jones in the slot, Jonathan Jones outside. Alex Austin has been the primary guy rotating with Jonathan Jones on the outside. Marcus Jones has also gotten some reps outside for Jonathan Jones, and Marco Wilson has also been in that conversation apparently. And they've got Isaiah Bolden in the slot behind Marcus Jones. That's how I have kind of put it together from
interesting with Bolden, because he's a lanky guy. You feel like he's a guy that can play outside, but I don't know if he has the hip flexion and all that stuff for it. I don't know.
He's going to be the power slot corner essentially, if that's what you're looking for, almost like a safety in that. I do also think it's interesting. The name I didn't mention in there was Sean Wade, which is I have to keep. Every time I go to talk about him, I have to Google to make sure he is actually still on the team, because I usually hear nothing about him. Yeah, I thought he played better last year, but like they're hyping up the corners, and he's not in that group that they're talking about. So
no,
his time in New England might be coming to an end here.
I think so too. But you never know. He surprised some people last year. I think Monte Mapu was a guy that they mentioned. Gerard Mayo mentioned Monte Mapu when he said, that there's going to be a few guys out. Peppers, I think he said, was going to be out, and who could kind of step into that role. And it was interesting to see Monte Mapu in that spot. He was also talking about somebody else being out. Who was he talking about? No, was it Peppers? Either way, I think that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we'll see.
I'm trying to think if there's any other defensive notes that I've heard. I heard some good things about Marcellus Dial, which is good. Brendan Schooler got some time at safety today, like with the starting defense, which I thought was really interesting. Jalen Hawkins has also been playing a ton, and they've been giving him some reps in the slot as well. I think he's going to end up being your Deron Harmon this year.
I think so too. Yeah,
and I think especially if you're playing against teams that have bigger slot guys and you don't want Marcus Jones out there for that, I wouldn't be surprised if you see 3 safety defenses and a lot of zone, with Hawkins giving you some versatility and some more size out there over what Marcus Jones can do. Marty Mapu, I still can't figure out where he is in this defense. He was banged up today. I can't tell if he's a hybrid or a tweener right now.
Play him close to the line. Whatever you do with him, play him close to the line. Because
Sounds like they're playing him at safety, but he's also barely practicing right
But
now.
I'm okay with them playing him at safety as long as they're playing him in the Jabril Peppers role and not the Devin McCourty role, right? Like that's, keep him close to the line.
I agree there. I know what I was talking about. For other offensive line rotation stuff, Layden Robinson seems to be your backup right guard right now, as far as I can tell. Michael Jordan, your backup left guard. And then Leverett is your backup center, and I think he's also in that backup guard conversation. And then Antonio Mafi, I think he's your third string center right now. Not a good sign for him. He has had issues with that, apparently, issues with snapping the ball. That sounds like they don't think he's played well at guard, so they're seeing if he can stick at center. It's not working, and I think that means he's another guy who's, I don't think he's a scheme fit. He didn't play well. We're trying a different position. These are all the big red flags for a guy getting,
So, all right. That's it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and we're going to see. We're going to see in the next few days. I think Monday night's show is going to be a little bit more informative stuff over the weekend. And of course, Monday should be their first full padded practice, and I think we'll be able to see a lot more there. So, so we'll see. But anyways, that does it for us. I'm going to be at practice on Friday, hopefully also on Monday. So if people are around Friday or Monday, stop by, shoot me a DM and just say, hey, whatever, and try to meet up or whatever. So, so anyways, that does it for us. Thanks so much for coming through. Thank you to the chat. As always, we appreciate you. And we'll be talking to you on Monday night.
Yeah. And if you stick around on the Patriots CLNS YouTube channel, it's Pat's Daily and Pat's Beat together. So Tayler, Mike, Alex, and Brian. So
that's right.
Love star-studded lineup right after us. Stay right here. You'll get the full experience. Fantastic.
Yep. And me and Taylor are Taylor. We're not going together, but Taylor and I are both going to see Deadpool and Wolverine tonight, which is why we're early. They're not early, but which is why we're early tonight because I'm going to see the movie tonight. So I'm very excited about that. So
enjoy.
I'll let you guys know on Monday how it is. No spoilers, of course.
No.
So, all right, guys. We'll see you.